is 5 o'clock and it is hot out there, and so it is yet another weather impact alert day across central Indiana.
So not only have the temperatures soared into the 90s again, but there's also a chance for some pop-up storms tonight. Angela's been keeping us updated on this heat advisory for days now. Angela?
And that heat advisory, excessive heat warnings continue for the state and will continue for the next several days. So we'll talk about the heat first, impacting more people. Then we'll get to those storms. As you just saw on radar, they are firing up across parts of central Indiana. Temperatures right now in the low to mid 90s. We're at 92 in Indianapolis, 93 Greensburg, sitting at 95 in Carmel. Heat index values, those feels like temperatures topping 100 in most locations, feeling like 102 in Fishers, feeling like 104 in Shelbyville, feeling like 100 in Greencastle, and feeling like 104 in Avon. Continue to take precautions from the heat, and remember, a few thunderstorms late this afternoon, early this evening may interrupt some of those outdoor plans. We've got a heavy cell crossing Interstate 65. This is west of Monticello, north of Lafayette. A few scattered cells just west of Crawfordsville. These will continue to track off to the north and east, and we've got a few downpours near the Spencer area. You can see the movement very slow from southwest to northeast. These pulse up and then fall apart, very typical for summertime weather. We've got a few showers east of Indianapolis along I-70 as well. So this is the type of activity that will continue tonight. It is Dollar Menu night at Victory Field. Be prepared for a hot first pitch near 90 degrees. The heat is back tomorrow, another hot one with a few storms tomorrow afternoon as well.
Thanks, Angela. And we did reach out to Indianapolis EMS today about the number of calls they've been getting in all this hot weather.
No surprising that the numbers are going up. We're talking about the calls for things like dehydration, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and sunstroke. They told us Friday they responded to 6 of those calls, and they say that's a pretty high number. They had a similar number of calls over the weekend.
But take a look. So those calls doubled yesterday, with first responders answering 13 across Indy.
And that's why it's just so important that we know the symptoms of heat exhaustion and stroke.
If it's heat exhaustion, you may experience dizziness, thirst, heavy sweating, or nausea. For heat stroke, it's confusion and unconsciousness.
Either way, you are urged to call 911 immediately if you're experiencing these symptoms.
Public colleges all across Indiana are freezing tuition for the next 2 school years.
Rich Nye has reaction tonight from the governor, who pushed for this freeze.
A tuition freeze at all of the IU campuses across the state. The same for Purdue, Ball State, Indiana State, and Ivy Tech. All 15 public colleges have committed to hold tuition and mandatory fees flat for in-state undergraduate students for the next 2 academic years, at the governor's request.
Purdue has gained renown for doing it, and they've done it now into the 13th year. So that's why there was no credible kind of argument against freezing your tuition for 1 year.
Governor Braun says too many students are going to 4-year schools and not finishing or not getting the right education needed for Indiana's workforce. He wants higher education to better reflect the job market. Ivy Tech offers Indiana's most affordable higher education at about $5,100 annual tuition.
This provides transparency and certainty for students for the next 2 years that they can still come to Ivy Tech and get the same great educational options at the lowest price in Indiana.
A tuition freeze is welcome news for new students walking up to welcome tables like this at orientation at IU Indianapolis.
I think it is awesome because it makes it more accessible. I think higher education, anything that we can do in order to make that more accessible is awesome.
That's amazing news. I mean, ever since I started my college journey, it's been a struggle to pay for tuition, especially if it's going up. So having a tuition freeze really helps me budget for the future.
A future with tuition not escalating. In Indianapolis, Rich Nye, 13 News.
The Braun administration said this is the first time since at least 2010 that more than 2 state college campuses have simultaneously agreed to hold tuition flat.
Tonight, a Kokomo woman who spent time in prison for crushing animals is facing new charges of crimes against more animals. Crystal Scott and 2 other people are facing 12 counts of care and treatment violations. A police report from Saturday says police found a van belonging to Scott on the Near East Side of Indy. They found 12 extremely dehydrated dogs and cats inside. All were alive with no physical injuries. Back in November of 2021, Scott took a plea deal and was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison on 2 counts of animal crushing. We previously covered that case in July of 2020. That's when federal agents and other law enforcement officers showed up at the house following Scott's arrest. She was 19 at that time. She was accused of making and distributing animal crush videos.
Tonight, 2 men who own bars in Broad Ripple are now facing charges. They're accused of underreporting sales and not paying their taxes. Rob Sabatini owns Rock Lobster Mineshaft Saloon and Average Joe's. He now is facing 27 charges. The Marion County prosecutor also charged the owner of Connor's Pug, John Yagi. Those charges came down earlier this month. He's facing 10 charges in addition to charges for not paying taxes. He also is facing 1 count of making an unlawful proposition. And for that charge, he's accused of telling an employee she'd get better paying shifts in exchange for sexual favors.